Haddon is unusual because it's so old. It's a really, really ancient place, and that's what surprises people. Haddon Hall is a very old house, which was originally built as a Norman fort sometime in the late 12th century. It's unusual because it's not a castle, it's a fortified manor house.
It's one of the most important historic houses in the country. It's 900 years old. It is an architectural masterpiece that has survived, and it's called the Sleeping Beauty because for 200 years the family left it and they locked the door and left it to the bats and spiders.
Some people say it was abandoned, but it actually wasn't. It was just mothballed for 200 years. The Medieval Park is an area of land around the hall of about 400 acres. We've gone back through the records and found the original boundary from the 14th century deer park. The park we discovered was actually much bigger than the park that we're standing in now. Much of the original park was turned into farmland in the 18th and 19th century. Walls put up, hedges planted, fences, heavily grazed. And the only last bit of the original medieval park was this bit here. It was about 90 acres. What's unusual about this bit of land is that it's been left undisturbed for so many hundreds and hundreds of years. As the house was left empty, so the land around it was also just left to seed. So this land already had a very, very healthy population of all kinds of different wildlife. What we're trying to do with this project is to take the base of what we have, this ancient park, and expand it out, initially into the land surrounding it, then hopefully into the landscape beyond too. I took over Haddon about 25 years ago in 1999, and there was an opportunity to take back in hand this bit of land, which is the original park and what we knew was the earlier boundary of the park in about 2008-2009. Unlike some project, regenerative type wilding type projects, which start from a base of very overused agricultural fields, this landscape has been completely untouched for maybe 600-700 years. We're using this as kind of the mothership for the expansion of this bit up into the rest of the park. So in 10, 20, 30 years time, we're hoping that the whole of the medieval park will look like this, creating amazing habitat and biodiversity, with all the benefits that comes with that. So what we're trying to create here is natural open wood pasture. So that involves partly letting trees seed themselves and grow out naturally from the hedgerows, but obviously that takes a long time. So we we sort of helped along its way a bit by planting, I think, about 500 trees actually, individual parkland trees, all English native trees.
Lord Edward and I, we've had days and days, weeks and weeks going around all these fields, plotting the locations of the trees, mapping them, strategically planning where we're going to put these new trees, replanting, creating new pockets of woodland pasture and trying to recreate it how it would have been 750, 800 years ago. We've actually cut sections out of these hedgerows, which haven't been flailed since 2009, to reduce the definition of the compartmentalised field system. And we've cut sections out quite strategically to open up vistas, which coincide with the planting we've done in 2012 to 2016. And the last planting we've just done. Trying
to work out a very natural sort of planting scheme for these individual trees. In the old park, which hasn't been disturbed too much and hasn't ever been ploughed up, you can actually see these sort of platforms where trees must have been in the past. It's almost like you can see where the root ball was. So that's really easy to put a tree in there. So a lot of the trees are planted in that way.
We had to consider what isn't going to be here, possibly due to ash dieback in 2, 3, 10, 15 years. 180 to 200 of them we planted were ash. Because the original parts of the park are some of the best ash trees in the country, so we wanted to follow that on, and then ash dieback hit. So there's only 3 ash trees which are on these top fields which have survived. we'll just leave the ash trees to see if they do recover. We might just have 1 or 2 in the parkland which might be disease resistant, and hopefully collect some seeds off them.
We have a fantastic herd of English longhorn cattle, which we brought in about 12 years ago. In this context, they're the most fantastic habitat creators. They move around where the best grazing is. Sometimes they go down to the river, and certain times of day there's too much fly life by the river, so then they'll sort of move up to the top fields. So they never overgraze anything. They much prefer to stay out all year round. They're very healthy because they're browsers, not grazers. They love eating herbs and nettles and leaves, so they move around unevenly grazing the grasses and the wildflowers and the bushes and the trees.
We have an old cow with the wonky horns actually in the background, and she's like the matriarch of the younger herd of cattle.
We've got a herd of, I think, about 30 or 40 now. Quite a few young calves, new calves this year, and we're aiming to grow our herd to about 70, but no more than that. The purpose being to undergraze this land.
The difference in sward height is quite a critical thing, whereas sheep are very low grazers and they stress the grass. So the root system is then stressed. The roots don't go down as far into the ground. So as soon as you've got these different sward heights, the grasses then outcompete the weeds, and the soil quality improves as well.
We've taken out a lot of fencing, reduced the grazing, put a new perimeter fence around the whole thing.
It was all sectioned off into traditional blocks of fields, and now we've taken most of the internal fences down, apart from where the footpaths are and the bridleways. So we've now got 3 separate blocks as opposed to 20 odd fields. We've got a lot more deer as a result of the fence removal. We've got a couple of pairs of roe deer and a lot of fallow deer. They used to come and go, but now we've got resident ones that don't seem to go anywhere. They just go from the woodland to the grassland, and they've stopped with us for the last 2 or 3 years. The wildlife's increased tenfold, really. That's because of the plentiful food, and the barn owls are flourishing as well. I think on the whole estate we've got over 7 pairs.
The 20 or 22 miles of river that are managed by the Haddon estate are a colossally important resource for England.
The river which runs through the park here is the River Wye, the Derbyshire Wye.
You know, the Wye particularly is a river that's so pure, this wonderful river system. As it runs through the medieval park, it's just full of insects. And that means that you've got an incredible circle of life going on here.
The Derbyshire Wye is a very special river and fairly unique in some of its characteristics. It's the only river in the country to have spring spawning wild rainbow trout. Introduced in 1890 from California, they got into the river by chance from Ashford Lake, and they've taken to this river very well and spawn here successfully every year.
We're in a floodplain, we're in water meadows. Flooding is a big issue in this area. This is what floodplains are for. This is what water meadows are for. They have a natural function to take up water in safety. This is a resource then, not just for wildlife, it's a resource for people, because areas like this are locking up carbon and they're performing a function in terms of flood mitigation.
It's all very well to look at all the big things like the raptors and the big mammals, but actually the most important thing is the things in the ground, you know, from the fungi to the root systems to the little tiny microorganisms and insects, and that's what enables the bigger species and the birds and the mammals to survive. So yellow meadow ants you only really find in completely undisturbed land. They hate being disturbed or ploughed up, and they just go.
They're an enormous food source, but they're not only doing that, they're creating microclimates on their banks because the way that they tunnel up the soil, they create special dry areas and sunny patches. So there's a whole different level of vegetation there.
But they're a real indicator of the sort of clean, undisturbed land. It's a wild bee hive, which is just a new home for wild bee swarms. And we put this up about 5 weeks ago. And before we'd finished putting it up, the scout bees were already arrived, which is fantastic. And by that evening, a whole swarm had arrived. And now we have a very, very lively swarm in there. And so what we're hoping to do is to put loads of these up around the place. I mean, there are very, very good habitats for wild bees here anyway, but it's just nice to give them a bit of an extra boost. The primary objective at this stage is biodiversity, really. It's creating as much and as deep and as broad biodiversity as we possibly can.
With climate change, what goes hand in hand with that is devastating species loss. Well, here is a refuge where that's not happening. This wonderful project of conserving these untouched bits of territory through the medieval park is vital, not just for the wildlife that depends on this area, but for all the joining up places, because most animals function through dispersing. That's how they survive, that's how they flourish, but they need a secure area of territory. And they only do well where you have got optimum habitat, clean water, shelter, a lack of disturbance.
I'm very, very proud of what we are doing, and I'm very, very conscious of its importance. I would say that hopefully this will be our legacy act.
It's the right thing to do on so many different levels. It takes a while for it all to change and start looking beautiful. But now we're kind of 12, 13 years into it. You can just look out on this fantastic landscape, and it's a really, really, really satisfying project. But I'm very confident that this will work really well. I'm confident that we will build a much richer, stronger biodiversity at Haddon. It's not a model for everywhere, but I hope some people who come and visit will get inspiration from it. You know, the stewardship of it is a great joy. It's just part of my nature, really. And I've always had a great love of the countryside and nature. And here I am as a landowner, and if you're a landowner, then you have that kind of responsibility.